Okay, just to wrap up lesson 5.2, which you did mostly on your own through investigation using Desmos, but at the end there is the difference between a reciprocal function and the inverse of a function. So the reciprocal trig function, that's on the left there when you're talking about the cosecant of 1/2, and then you compare it, which is the reciprocal of the sine ratio. And then on the other side, you have a little bit of the inverse, dealing with the inverse sine, so the inverse of a ratio. Basically, what you need to know is that if you're talking about the reciprocal, so you start with sine, and you have the sine of some angle, doesn't matter what it is, okay? If you type this in, what you're going to get out is a ratio. Okay, you're going to get out a ratio. In this case, the ratio of opposite over hypotenuse within a unit circle. So if you take the reciprocal of sine, which is cosecant, okay, you're still going to be getting a ratio. You're going to get a ratio out the other end, but the ratio is going to be h over o. Okay, does that make sense? It's still a ratio. Now, when we're talking about taking the inverse of sine, so you have some angle, you have, in this case, you're looking for an angle. In this case, this x is the ratio, and you're going to get out an angle. Okay, so over here, you're getting out a ratio or a ratio. Over here, the inverse of something. Here, this is the ratio. You already have the ratio. You're going to get out an angle. Okay? So typically this would be well, yeah. And we'll write the notes, and then hopefully that makes a little bit of sense. So your blanks there, the value of cosecant of 1/2, you can chuck that in your calculator. The value of that is 2.0858, okay? Cosecant of 1/2 is the reciprocal of the sine of 1/2. So in that row, if you have the cosecant of 1/2 and you take the reciprocal of that, that basically just means that sine, then it would be 1 over the sine of 1/2. And if we were going to write this kind of in inverse notation, you could write it as taking the sine of 1/2 and the inverse of that. I don't really like this, how that explains. Maybe just take that out. I think that we're doing fine without that little notation. So here, in this example, in this side, when we're talking about taking the cosecant of 1/2, 1/2 is the radian measure of an angle. Here, 1/2 is the measure of an angle. So what comes out is the ratio. Okay? This is the ratio of hypotenuse over opposite when you have an angle of 1/2 radians. That's different from on this side, where if you take your calculator and you take the inverse sine of 1/2, you end up with 0.5235 radians in your calculator, but you know your special angles, okay? That's pi over 6 radians. This is the inverse sine of 1/2, okay? So this is the inverse of the sine of 1/2. So the goal in this situation, the goal is to determine an angle whose sine ratio is 1/2. It's to determine an angle whose sine ratio is 1/2. So you could draw the angle using the given sine ratio. We've done that in many different examples. But the key to this is if you're given something that looks like this, okay, that means you are given the ratio, you're looking for the angle. If you're given this, that means you're given the angle and you're looking for the ratio.